So this was Vampire Weekend with Only God uh, Above Us. Um, and yeah, a band who I think we all have our own history with in our different ways. Karl never really got into them based on discussions. Kylie, you've loved their stuff in the past and then feel there's been a drop off, particularly since one of the band members left.
Spoilers.
So sorry. So yeah, I myself loved their opening record back in the university days, 2008, when there was all sorts, the first MGMT band we referenced last month. Um, then the second album I thought was all right. Somehow missed the third album, which in retrospect was probably the high point. And then that one they came back with in 2019 just was a way over long, bloated effort, which had its moments, but was nowhere near the levels of what they'd produced previously. So yeah, you go into it with a lot of intrigue, I think, with this band. They seem to be the critics' darlings, that's for sure. Looking at how people have assessed this, and for me, after the kind of detour with Father of the Bride, their previous album 2019, they're kind of back on song here. It took me a while to fully get to where I did with it. But it's tight, it's not overlong. I mean, that's an immediate sort of tick based on Father of the Bride. So again, we've got, I think it's just the 10 songs on this album. Um, so much going on musically as there always tends to be with Vampire Weekend projects. And I suppose there's a slight difference to maybe the three previous we talked about. Something which is veering on hopeful in terms of what the overall kind of lyrical content is angling at. Um, so yeah, I'm just really pleased to hear that they are back in such a good way. I with the singles, I thought they're okay, and but actually it's through the album where I've got on more board with them more, um, and I see their place. I mean, it starts off really well. Ice Cream Piano, I think, is it starts off with this very sad lyric about someone losing faith with whatever it is, and Ezra trying to sort of reel them back in and say, it's not all bad, mate, or whatever it is, which he's trying to, convey here. And there's just so much again musically going on. It's quintessential Vampire Weekend, and I think that's perhaps why they are so admired is just how original, albeit with a huge nod to Paul Simon, they are with their music in this day and age. Classical follows straight afterwards. There's a ululation at the beginning, high guitar notes. It just doesn't really sound like much else which comes out now, really. And like I say, they're just hitting their groove. And there was very little I didn't like on this album. I found myself, whilst I was shaking my head at Anthony Fantano's St. Vincent review, with this one, I was kind of nodding most of the way, because even to the point of The Surfer being, for me, one of the weakest ones on here, and I know you guys love that one, so we'll have the rebuke shortly. um, but yeah, it's just so great to hear them back and sounding like they used to be and have set their stall out from the beginning. And we can kind of look at Father of the Bride as an aberration here. Um, and and yeah, piano is absolutely on fire. The double bass is a rare inclusion on a mainstream sort of pop record. Um, yeah, everything is just done really nicely here, and one I can just easily listen back to again and again, not get too bored with, and yeah, my fan hat for Vampire Weekend, which was stoked most. So if I talked about what I did with St. Vincent at End of the Road, Vampire Weekend's headline set is the best headline set I've seen at that festival, and that followed a couple of years after when I was probably a bit, yeah, they're okay, maybe feeling a bit more like Karl at that point, but seeing them live really drove it home, and I think yeah, with this record they've managed to translate that um onto their recorded tracks. So yeah, very very much a big fan of this record, and I feel there might be a bit of variance with this one, but I'll pass over to Kylie now.
Yeah, I was really glad you picked this record as well. You know, I think it was 2008 um, when the debut self-titled had just come out, and I was lucky enough to see them in Berlin in a basement that was probably 200 people, and just I think similar to you, Andrew, where I was at that time, finishing up school and um, just really feeling that while recognizing that it was, essentially a Graceland ripoff a lot of the time, but they made it their own. And Contra and Modern Vampires, I thought both just fantastic records that those years they came out, listened to them nonstop. And then uh, Father of the Bride, it's overlong, it's bloated, and I didn't really identify that anything stood out for me on that. It's super disappointed with that one. So, it was a good opportunity here to have some recovery. And unfortunately for me, I said in the chat before it came out, I didn't know if I had just maybe outgrown Vampire Weekend. And um, I definitely have, because this album, to me, the singles are really weak. Didn't pull me in, and there's just the one song you don't like, the Surfer, for me is like the one song that rescues this album, and is the one song that's made my big 2024 list. And I didn't realize this till this morning when I was looking at the credits, but you'd mentioned Rostam leaving after Modern Vampires, who I thought was really the essential member of this band that made them Vampire Weekend, has a writing credit on that song, and also has a production credit. I don't know if it's just that song or not. So it's nice to see him involved a little bit. And for me, it's unfortunate that they can't get back. Never say never. We've seen all the reunions. We're old enough to know that you never say never. But Rostam's solo material doesn't really do anything for me either. But as that foursome, I think that's when they really click. And this, I don't know. Ezra Koenig's voice to me right now is just nails on a chalkboard. And same thing with I think Chris Thompson's the drummer. There's just a lot of old snare shuffles and stuff that were on the first two albums that he's kind of bringing back here, and it's just it comes off as old and stale. And as many times as I tried with this record, it is a damn slog for me. So two in a row, I'm comfortably out on the Vampire Weekend bandwagon. And kind of, I think the funniest thing to come out of this is that I enjoyed the most was their I can't remember where they were recording at, but the Peggy-O cover, which is traditional, but Ezra is a very well documented deadhead, as am I. And so kind of I enjoyed that cover of what I would say is a quintessential Grateful Dead song more than anything on this record. Just more disappointment. which I'm disappointed about.
So there we go. Faith restored for me. Kylie's disappointed. It's not reeled you back, and Karl, who has always been on the fence about Vampire Weekend, has this reeled you in, or are we more on the against pile for Vampire Weekend here?
Yeah, it was funny there. Kylie sort of saying that, the Vampire Weekend has ended. I was like thinking he's now entered the weekday, which is
Yeah.
which is
Every album is a Monday.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've been with Vampire Weekend. I would say is always the weekday, never the weekend. It's just one of those bands that I've just never really taken to. No, for want of trying, as you say, Andrew, that they're the critical darlings, and every time I go into a record, I'm expecting something to get me, and it just never comes. For me, they're more of a singles band. A Punk, one of the songs that soundtracked my uni days. We'd always request it on a night out. Fantastic single. Some of the ones off Contra I really quite enjoyed too. So single wise, they've had their moments for me. And then it's funny you should mention them live. I actually saw them at Mad Cool in 2019, as it was one of those where I was like, there's no one else on. Let's go hear the songs that we like. And I actually really enjoyed their set, like more than I was expecting to. It was kind of like one of the pleasant surprises of the weekend for me, that. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably go see them live again in a heartbeat. But yeah, when it comes to their, when I've been exposed to them for a full album, that's when I kind of get turned off, I think. When I saw the reviews for this one, I thought, okay, everyone's saying it's returned to form. Is this the record that's finally going to win me over? But yeah, alas, it's the same story this time around. It was like, similar to Kylie with Everything last month, I think. I played this album a lot. I sent it to you guys. It ended up one of my top 5 most played albums for April on my Apple Replay. So, I've spent time trying to see, the thing that a lot of other people see with this record. And ultimately, it's just, I'm not enjoying it for the full duration. For me, this is like a really 50-50 record. So I might even like it slightly more than you, Kylie. I don't know. But it was like, there's moments on here I really do like. Classical, I think, is fantastic. We touched on The Surfer. That's one of my favourites. It has a great mood to it. I said to you guys, like, the guitar work reminded me a lot of Sundara Karma, which for me is obviously never a bad thing. Prep School Gangsters, got some, nice cinematic moments, interesting arrangements sort of going on there that I find myself, vibing with. And then, yeah, Gen X Cops was like you, Andrew. I didn't really rate it as a single, but, on the record here, I think it's actually one of the better tracks. The buzzy riff that it's got running all the way through. I think the chorus is really catchy. And then the other one that I'm sort of more on the like side than dislike, I'd say, is Hope at the end. We spoke about the St. Vincent track probably not needing to be 7 minutes. I don't think this necessarily needed to be quite as long as 8 minutes either. But I think, it's quite a memorable, has its moments, and I think it works as a closing track. So those are like the 5 songs that I quite dig, but then it's the other 5 tracks for me I just can't get on board with at all. The first half in particular, I have to get through that every time I play this record. Aside from Classical, it really just turns me off as soon as I kind of hit play. Ice Cream Piano and Connect. You mentioned, Andrew, like, there's so much going on in those songs. For me, there's too much going on in those songs. They're a bit all over the place. It sounds like a million ideas happening at once that I don't for me, it doesn't. Well, for me, it doesn't really come together. I don't think. Capricorn, it's a similar story. Like it starts really plodding, and then it kind of erupts in the back half into this. Well, it's not the back half. It's like midway through. There's this awful cacophony of a noise that I find so grating. And honestly, every time it hits that point, I genuinely like wince a bit. It's like, yeah, it's like nails on chalkboard. That song for me. And then there's the two that I'm kind of like indifferent towards, but they don't really grip me. Prada has like a similar moment to Capricorn, but it's maybe not quite as offensive. Mary Boone is one that I can sort of appreciate. Why you would enjoy that song, but for me, it just doesn't do anything. I think that's the big thing with their music is I love songs that they move me in one way or another. And I think a lot of the time when I listen to Vampire Weekend, they just leave me feeling a bit numb, I would say. So yeah, I'd say this was a real mixed bag for me. I would say I've like simultaneously enjoyed it more than any Vampire Weekend record previously, while also probably disliking it as much as I have all their previous stuff. So yeah, probably me and Kylie, maybe the only two people that won't have it on our year-end list come December. But yeah, that's where I've landed with it.
There we go. 2 on defeat for Vampire Weekend, and 2 uses of nails on a chalkboard. So Ezra's voice and that moment in Capricorn, which I will have to try and listen back and pick that out.
You won't miss it.
I must have.